Okay, so we're going to go ahead and use the coil tool here. So we're going to do Start 2D Sketch. And it's a lot like the Revolve, so we're going to go ahead and make a profile to use. Okay, so there's our profile. We're just going to trim it out here. We're going to make a little bit of a more complicated one this time, just because of the fact that it's kind of more interesting if it's more complicated. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and make a line somewhere outside of the shape. Right-click OK. So we have our profile, we have our axis to revolve around, or coil around. We're going to click Finish Sketch. Then we're going to go ahead and click Coil. The profile was automatically selected. The axis is not automatically selected. So let's take a quick look at what's happening here. Okay, so if I look at it in 3 dimensions, this is the path that it's going to coil around. Okay, the distance between this first coil and the second coil is called the pitch. Okay, so that's the pitch. That's the name. Like when you look at a screw, the distance between 2 of those lines that go around the screw is called the pitch. Okay. Essentially, it is if you remember your simple machines, right, essentially it is a inclined plane wrapped around an axis, right? So that's what a screw is, right? So the pitch is the distance from one point to another along that axis. All right, so the coil size, if we click on coil size, we can adjust that pitch. So we can make that pitch, say, 2 inches. We can change the number of revolutions, let's say to 10. We can also add a taper. So if you notice, it keeps giving us this preview. We can also add a taper. And this is a number of degrees that's going to taper. Okay, so notice that we can do a positive taper. We can also do a negative taper. Okay, if you see something that looks like this, know that you're going to have problems. Okay, you can't what's called self-intersect. So basically, we're going to wrap this profile around this green line, right? It's just going to keep repeating itself around the green line. It can't self-intersect itself, so it can't run into itself as it's repeating that shape. That's our only issue, right? Okay, the coil ends. We're not going to go into this too much. I'm just going to go into the fact that if you want it to end at a particular point, for example, okay, we're just going to click OK here, and then I'll talk about it in a minute. All right, so we're going to click OK. Notice that the ends here, notice how there's no offset, how this end right here ends right where this one does. Okay, so they're on the same plane, like these two are on the same plane. If you wanted to adjust these ends, you would adjust it on coil ends. Now I'll leave it to you to experiment with that, okay? All right, so there's our coil. Okay, so that's it. So that's the coil. We're going to make it glossy. There we go. Okay, so that's the coil.